So I essentially say the price of a stock is equal to its EPS times the multiple. So essentially, whatever that company earns per share, that's what EPS is, the profits per share on the income statement, that's what the price of the stock is equal to. Is equal to EPS, the earnings per share. Then exactly what you just described times its multiple. And the multiple could be the earnings per share, whatever the company earns per share. And then there is a exuberance factor. You know, I would pay 10 times the earnings per share. I will pay 10 times, 20 times the earnings per share. 100 times the earnings per share because the company is expected to grow. So rather than paying the company par, because the price of a stock is really equals to the earnings per share times whatever multiple the market is willing to pay on top of that earnings per share because of exuberance. And so that's a very simplistic way I was able to explain it. And my kids kind of got that. And it is overly simplistic. And so that multiple is called a PE ratio, as we know, Patrick.
Yes.
And so I essentially say that the price of Ford at $11 per share is whatever its EPS is. And then if the EPS is, I don't know, $6 per share, then if it's trading at $12 a share, then someone multiplied 2. So the PE is equal to 2. So it's 2 times the earnings per share. So that's how Ford came out to be $12 a share. Or if Chipotle is actually making, $1,000, so let's say $100 per share. But the market believes Chipotle is going to grow very quickly. Instead of the market paying, $100 per share, they would pay a PE ratio, a multiple of 14 times it. So that's how, Chipotle turns out to be $1,400 a share. So you really have to look at the multiple to understand how expensive a stock is, because the price of a stock is essentially the EPS and whatever multiple the market is willing to pay above the EPS. What are your thoughts on that without killing me on that super simplistic way of describing it for the kids?
I think that's a great basic description of the price of the share. I mean, like I said, there's so many different ways to value, and it can get pretty complicated. However, but simplistically, if you wanted to say that, if we want to put it into extreme layman terms, yes, the way you would determine the price of the share is the earnings multiplied by whatever multiple people willing to pay for that stock based on expectations of growth.
Right, and that earnings is earnings per share.
It's earnings per share, exactly.
Right. So the price of a stock is essentially the earnings per share. That's essentially it. And then the PE ratio is that multiple that people are willing to multiply to on top of it. Mm-hmm. I'm repeating myself, but I think people get it. So now that we talked about where the price of a stock comes from and how do you determine which one is cheaper than the other, because Ford could be trading at $12 per share and Chipotle could be trading at $1,400 per share. But the multiple, the PE ratio for Chipotle could be 14 because Chipotle is making $100 EPS. So the PE ratio is 14 times, where Ford could be earning 50 cents EPS, but trading at $12 a share. So you will have to just kind of divide that out and figure out how many multiple times, 50 cents that would raise you up to $12. But one can easily see that Ford is the much more expensive stock because it's trading at a multiple extremely crazy compared to, the EPS and multiple on Chipotle. So